We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. We've asked Commissioner Chapman, our Vice Chair, to lead us.
If the audience would please stand for the... I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's have roll call. Start over here.
Chris Karn,
Sandra Steele,
Brian Chapman,
Kirk Wilkins,
Ken Kilgore,
Troy Cunningham.
and we have a quorum. City staff?
Oh, you could just
Yours is on now.
Here from city staff, if you'd like to share.
Okay.
Kevin Thurman.
Gordon Miner,
David Stroud.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. This seems like we have a big crowd tonight. This is a public meeting, and we've set aside some time for public comments. If you have any that are not on the agenda. Sorry. Okay. We do have an addition of another planning commissioner. Would you like to introduce yourself too?
Bryce Sanderson.
Thank you, Brian Sanderson. Okay, so this is if you have some comments tonight and you are here for our one item or our first item, please make sure that you have signed the roll outside. We want to make sure we have your name for the public record. And right now we're going to open up public input. This is not for the items that are on the agenda. So if you have something you'd like to come forward, please limit your comments to 3 minutes and state your name and address for the record. Time is yours. Taking the time back. Okay, so no public input. Let's move on to item number 4. This is a public hearing, Beacon Point Community Plan, located approximately at Parkway Boulevard and Redwood Road. Suburban Land Reserve is the applicant, and we'll turn the time over to our planning director, David Stroud, for his presentation.
Commissioners, those in the audience, those online, this is a request for a community plan level document of the Beacon Point project. Now to benefit of those in the audience, what a community plan is, it's basically a very broad zoning document. It gives some very broad parameters for development. It doesn't allow development once a community plan is approved. They still have to come in for what's called a village plan, which really narrows down the development standards, the lotting plans, the road layouts, that sort of thing. So the community plan just gives us some very broad level documents for them then to take the next step to go to village plan, then subdivision plats, site plans, that sort of thing. Click on the right screen here. I got to watch 2 monitors. So the property you see identified here in the blue, this entails the Beacon Point project, 300 plus acres is what we're looking at here. This is in the planned community zone, hence that's why we're going through this community plan process. The applicant is Suburban Land Reserve, or SLR. The planned community zone is governed by what's called the district area plan. What the district area plan does, it identifies neighborhood place types and identifies types of open space. And so the 2 neighborhood place types that are going to be used within this Beacon Plan project is the traditional neighborhood, and then the neighborhood commercial, being the applicant would like the option, should it fit and should it work within the development, to have some sort of neighborhood commercial services within that development. So each of these neighborhoods gives some broad range of density for units, open space percentages, that sort of thing. Types of projects, or types of parks that would be appropriate within those neighborhoods. The land use allocation, so the entire project right here is broken up with about 67 acres of open space, and then about 305 acres of residential use. And of course, in that residential use, there still could be some neighborhood commercial. But you can see it broken down here. So the 305 acres of residential would encompass approximately 1,900 residential units. That gives us a density of about 5.13 units per acre. Then you can see, based on the open space breakdown, that 67 acres is then broken down further by certain types of open space, which you can see identified there with the percentages of that open space. The plan itself is broken down into multiple villages. It's anticipated that each of these villages would then become a village plan. So a developer or multiple developers would come in and take one of these villages, and that would be their project. So down the road, each of these would come in then further for more detail, more development standards under the village plans. And so this just gives you the breakdown of the size of those village plans, what the density is, how much open space is calculated within each of those, and then what the equivalent residential units would be, or basically doors, for each of those neighborhoods. So this then identifies the map where those neighborhoods are located, and it gives the same numbers as far as the ERUs, the acres of the project. So you can see they're all given a name: Eastman, Springs, Cutler Valley, and so on. Those are all historical references to things to this area, this history. They've tied that into this project. The open space plan, this breaks down where the open space would be. It's anticipated that each of these village plans, as they come in, will also have additional open space. This would be the minimum you see here within the project. The DAP does allow the special project site to be calculated as open space. That's 22 plus acres of open space. There'll be a large city park, detention basin under city control. The Founders Boulevard, that type of road alignment also qualifies as open space based on the district area plan. Some trail connections, that sort of thing. Multifamily open space you see in the Bridger Field neighborhood, as you can see, they're identified in red. But this will give you the breakdown then of those open space areas. And again, the village plan level will probably anticipate additional open space as those projects come in. One of the unique things about this project is the Founders Boulevard design. This is a road cross section which we don't have within our standards at this time. Kind of a unique design here. If you look at it, you can see the travel lanes in each direction, but then there are some slip lanes which are one direction, which would then access the homes that do front the Founders Boulevard. You wouldn't access the homes directly from Founders. You would have to jump on the slip lanes to get to those units there. And this is kind of a close-up then of that typical cross-section of what those slip lanes would look like. We have there what's called edge conditions as well. The developer recognizes that there's existing developments or future developments that will be against or around the perimeter of this project. And so there are certain regulations for those areas classified as Edge 1, Edge 2, or Edge 3. So on the map here, you can see that at least on the south side is where the existing residential is located. There are also two church sites there as well. The numbers you see there, for instance, in the middle at Wilson Knoll, the 9,500, that signifies that those homes, those lots that front or adjacent to the existing residential have to be at least 9,500 square feet. Same thing over to the right, if you look at Parley Orchard. Those lots that are adjacent to the existing residential would have to be at least 7,000 square feet. And as you get further in the project, those lot sizes can then vary, but these are the averages for those two new neighborhoods there, those two villages, of the minimum lot size that they would have to maintain. Then, of course, you've got Edge Condition 2, which is in red, which gives different standards for any homes or development that front those areas. Then Edge Condition 3 would be the perimeter of Founders Boulevard and around the special project site. Looking at the village plans again, this will give you the minimum lot size. Could have an average lot size, and if an edge condition is applicable, what the minimum lot size is on those edge conditions. And then the lot unit square footage, if you have two-family residential, for instance, you'd have to have at least a 4,000 square foot lot. A three-family, have at least a 5,000 square foot lot, and so on. Then if there's any multifamily, which would be 4 units and greater, together, at least 600 square feet for a single bedroom, and 800 square feet if the unit has two plus bedrooms. Just some of the design guidelines, some of your standard items, your setbacks, that sort of thing, for single family attached, and the multifamily. These would be the standards there, and the minimum square foot size. Staff recommends approval of the project. This would then go on to if you do forward a positive recommendation, this would go on to the first meeting in December for the City Council. And then, of course, you also have the options to continue or to deny the project as well. Now, the applicant is here. They do have a presentation as well. So I think at this time, if you don't have any questions for me right now, we can queue up the applicant's presentation. We can have the applicant go through theirs.
Thank you for your presentation. Is the applicant here? Would you like to come forward and join us and introduce yourselves with with your name and address for the record.
Great. I'm Thane Smith with Suburban Land Reserve, and my address is 51 South Main, Suite 301, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84111.
My name is Michael Budge. I'm with LOSI, Landscape Architecture, Land Planning, and Urban Design firm. Our address is 569 East 2nd Avenue in Salt Lake City.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything to the presentation tonight?
We wanted to add that we listened to your comments last time during the work session, and we've added additional verbiage within the community plan to address those comments. We've got our presentation. If you'd like us to go through it, we're happy to. Since you've already seen it, we don't need to, and we could just respond to comments.
We're having technical difficulties here, so I'll try and bring that up as soon as possible.
I think it'd be, I mean, if you want to, it would be beneficial. The public is here to see it, so.
Okay, great.
I'm assuming that they're here to see it and not approve our minutes from last week, which is the only other item on the agenda, so.
Well, first off, we just wanted to, on behalf of Suburban Land Reserve, we wanted to thank each member of the Planning Commission, the city staff, and citizens that are here for taking some time and giving your attention to us this evening. Hopefully the PowerPoint will pull up here soon. What you'll notice, though, from this PowerPoint is that where we're going to be presenting this evening is somewhat different than a typical community plan. From what we have seen, that's been typically presented for a community plan. It typically, that we've noticed anyways, is that it's product driven by the developers and builders who already have kind of a set product range that they're offering for the community plan. Instead, we're creating a somewhat unique vision, as mentioned from Planning Director David Strad there, about our community plan is going to be based on villages that will later have a developer that brings in their own personal vision for each of those villages. This will allow some flexibility and allow us to customize each of the villages specifically to that specific area on the site. All right, so in way of introduction, my name is Michael Budge, like I mentioned. I'm the principal and owner of LOSI, which is a landscape architecture, land planning, and urban design firm. As I mentioned, we're located in the Avenues and have been heavily involved in master planning communities for a number of years. One of which that's probably most recognized in this area anyways is Daybreak. We've been heavily involved in that since its conception. We partner with clients such as the Redevelopment Agency of Salt Lake City to help them look at neighborhoods and create a new sense of place. My colleague, the colleagues that are also working on this project is an engineering firm, LEI, that I'm sure most of you are familiar with because they've done a significant amount of work here in Saratoga. In fact, I think they've done over 17,000 lots here in Saratoga, so they've been heavily involved in the building of Saratoga over the years. And we're also joined by Thane Smith, who is the Vice President of Suburban Land Reserve and is the master developer for this project. Many of you that have come tonight might be interested or are wondering how we came up with the name Beacon Point. Early in our conversations discussing this development with Councilman Bud Podeska, he shared his view of Saratoga Springs and that it should be that this project should be a beacon to the surrounding communities. And in honor of him and his service, and because this development will be a significant step towards fulfilling his vision, we have called our community Beacon Point. In addition to honoring his legacy, we also sought to preserve a sense of place and history by naming each of these villages after local and regional significant founders, such as John Beck, the original visionary of Hot Springs Resort, and Frank Eastman, his successor. And for those of you that are interested and curious, perhaps, in more of the background of each of these names for the villages, you can find that information on page 23 of our community plan. If you look at this, the overall master plan here, you'll notice that the master plan is broken up into eight different villages that make up the community along with our primary street network. A transportation study has been done by a firm called Farron Piers, and they have verified that this network of streets will accommodate the capacity without overburdening adjacent roads or rerouting traffic through existing neighborhoods. The intersection at Parkway Boulevard and Redwood Road will be signalized as part of their recommendations, and adjustments to the transportation master plan are being integrated by the city staff right now. If you take a look at these dashed lines, and they're kind of hard to see on the screen, I apologize. These represent basically the edge conditions, either adjacent to existing development or along prominent corridors. We'll be following specific guidelines in order to blend these edge conditions into the overall fabric of the neighborhood. For example, here, this is a representation of what this might look and feel like. Here's the south edge condition. This is basically the area adjacent to the Benches or Grandview and Saratoga Hills subdivisions. You'll notice that great efforts will be taken to mirror the lot sizes, the frontages, and align fences and lot lines to ensure a seamless transition between Beacon Point, its development, and the surrounding context. On this next slide, if it will pull up here, it's kind of frozen, sorry. It's a chart here that's specifying the densities that we're reaching for in this community. As you can see from this table, our densities range from 3.45 units per acre in Founders Boulevard to 12 units per acre in our multifamily villages. The majority of our neighborhood will fall somewhere in between those two units counts. Suburban Land Reserve and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has worked hard together to locate the special project site and to provide a focal point for the community. While there's been a great deal of speculation, and many of you might have come tonight in hopes of an announcement or clarification, that is not in our purview at this time. What is known is that this will be some sort of ecclesiastical use with extensive grounds for open space, and will serve as a terminus for the central east-west corridor. As I mentioned before, our goal was to create a community that would be a beacon to the surrounding development. In all of our efforts, we are trying to create a livable community that allows for safety, security, and comfort and convenience, enabling the community association to create a sense of place that is welcome to the people of Saratoga Springs. As you saw in these previous diagrams, Beacon Point is organized around a main thoroughfare, which will act as the backbone and the centerpiece for our community. Founders Boulevard will have an unobstructed view from the special project site down towards Utah Lake to the east. And this boulevard is going to be reminiscent of several historic residential boulevards that you find throughout the country, even as close as South Temple and Salt Lake City, but other boulevards such as Summit Avenue in Minneapolis and also Pennsylvania Street in Denver. At first glance, it looks like a typical boulevard, but you'll notice that it's going to service a variety of functions, if you will. In addition to connecting to the north and south connection streets, it will also serve as the east and west entrance to the community. If you'll stay on this one. As a residential boulevard, it was important for us that it functions well for the residents. So we've provided, as you'll see in the screen here, a slip lane that will allow us to buffer the homes from the main flow of traffic and to create a street that has easy access for the residents and guests. A hedge in the median screens the parking from view of the corridor and also creates a soft divide. Separating the local and through traffic will also provide additional safety and comfort for children playing in their yards and other activities. And this is just a representation of what that might feel and look like. As the slip lane moves west, it's actually going to wrap around to the north and also to the south. In these locations, we're going to be providing tabletop crosswalks to provide traffic calming as well as additional safety for the pedestrians crossings. Also, to enhance safety and to avoid conflicts with parked cars, bicycle commuters will have a 5-foot lane, maybe even up to a 7-foot lane on either side of the main travel lanes dedicated for their use. We're also planning on providing a double row of trees that will create a comfortable pathway along the whole entire length of the boulevard where the pedestrians will enjoy a 10-foot wide trail buffer from the through traffic. This promenade will invite residents to get outside and have a pleasant experience in front of their homes where they can enjoy the shade, and the trees themselves will also act as a windbreak. This is just a representation, a quick fly through, if you will, of what that might look like and feel like. Just wanted to make sure you guys were watching there. Get everybody a little excited there. In this next slide, you're going to see basically an open space diagram. And it's going to illustrate essentially 18% of the minimal requirements for open space. This represents basically the size and their general locations. Each open space type was directly informed by the district area plan, open space definitions and parameters. Detention basins will be large and shallow to provide dual detention and recreational space. The dash trails, and again, I apologize, they're kind of hard to see on the screen, but the dash trails and our community trails, they're marked with the T's on the screen there, as well as the church sites, will allow for also additional open space that are actually not included in the overall open space number, but will be used as open space for the community. Here you can see kind of a breakdown of the open space by village and by type. And if you look closely, you may notice that some of these villages do not have dedicated open space. However, we do anticipate that the individual developers, when they come in to build their products, will have additional open space and amenities that they'll want to provide on their own to add to the overall network. As you all know, traditionally, desirable neighborhoods develop organically over time, and because of that, they have a rich palette of architectural styles and diversity. Likewise, instead of limiting the overall community to one particular style or theme, we have made a conscious decision to encourage our community to embrace a rich variety of complementary architectural styles that will be curated by each individual developer as well as the Architectural Review Committee. However, in order to kind of keep a whole comprehensive plan, we have chosen some site furnishings for our public open space that will be consistent throughout the community. These are some examples of what they might look like, such as benches, drinking fountains, trash receptacles, park grills, signage, and lighting. But you'll notice in these slides here, although we'll have universal branding elements, we'll also have village-specific branding elements that will reflect the individual styles and themes for each individual neighborhood, such as pavilions, restrooms, picnic tables, community mailboxes. All of these will have their own specific style according to the village that they're located in. So we hope this is, from this very small snapshot of our project, you can see our vision for this community and what it can be. This development represents a significant investment in the city of Saratoga and its future. This plan creates a centerpiece that will contribute to Saratoga Springs' sense of place and residence, where they can be proud of. We are extremely thankful for the opportunity that we've had to work on this project. We're thankful for your attention this evening, and we're basically ready to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. So this is the part where we have open time for you to come forward with your comments. This is a public hearing. We're going to open that public hearing now. If you'd like to come forward, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record. And if everybody has similar comments, we hope that we can consolidate those. So if you heard something that's already been said, you can say, I second whatever was said there. We're going to take notes, questions. We'll write those down, and we'll respond to those after we've closed the open comments. Time is yours.
In the previous meeting that was closed to the public, that you put up online, but in your work session, it was mentioned that there would be a special assessment, and you spoke about taxes and bonds, and so I would like to know who is responsible for paying those.
Can we have your name and address first?
Oh, sorry, Heidi Baldery. You need my street address as well? Okay, Saratoga Springs.
Okay, so we will answer the questions afterward, but if you had any other comments.
Oh, this is only comments, not questions?
Well, you can ask your questions. We're writing them down. I've taken notes. And then we're going to go over those one by one, and we'll answer those as a staff and as the applicant.
Okay, so would you like me to comment or question? Do you want
Whatever
me to
you
separate
like to
them?
do. It's your time. 3
Okay,
minutes.
so that's a question.
Okay.
My concerns are for the 12 unit per acre lots, the high density in the middle, that Bridger development out of those 8 seems significantly like it would stick out in the middle of custom, semi-custom homes, and the other densities. It doesn't seem to be very feathered. It seems like that would be visually and inappropriate in that space. So I'm concerned about that. I'm also concerned about the services that will be that come with increased population. So, for example, as many of you who are residents of the city know, that we can barely keep up with the building of schools for the residents that we have now. And then I guess my biggest concern is really the traffic. As a resident who lives off of Grandview Boulevard, as I'm sure most of my friends in this room are, I'd hate to see, kind of the serial mistake that the city has made in the past, which is, I guess, namely, when the city had the dump come in, they did not require the dump to create its separate road, and so it uses Grandview, and it just gets torn up over and over again. And so obviously we heard about Freedom Boulevard being put in, but there's nothing to address what goes behind the special site. And traffic is already horrendous, and so I think it's premature to build that without considering the traffic coming and going that way. And how is that going to be addressed? Because it sounded like you said, okay, well, we're putting in Unit 1, and then we'll go from, what did you say, the back to the front or the front to the back? Can't remember. Gentlemen. But I thought in the video that it did say that you were going to do it one way or the other, and I can't remember which it was. Front to back. So, so traffic is a huge concern. I don't feel that that's been adequately addressed, and that will create problems that we need to be hypervigilant about in advance. And I will let someone else take a turn. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Baldry.
Hi, my name is Caleb Buswell. I live off of Grandview here in Saratoga. My concerns after watching last week's online video several times. First, I second the 12 units per acre issue. I look at it and it seems like almost like a projects type of thing. When I look at it up on the screen, it doesn't seem to fit. But along with all the additional population, they also said last time they talked to Alpine School District and they don't feel like they need any more elementary schools. And that is a huge concern. We're bringing in 1,900 families. And Saratoga Springs is full. The D.R. Horton Elementary, I can't think of his name, is nearing capacity. And on top of this project, they're also putting in Jordan Promenade to the north. Where are all those kids going to go to school? That's almost 4,000 units. So that's a big concern. The fact that we're comparing it to Daybreak actually concerns me. The traffic through there is horrendous. Most of my friends have actually left because of either construction concerns or traffic issues. And along with the school planning, the fact that nothing has been set aside, I feel like we're setting ourselves up to be like Traverse Mountain, where we have a huge child population but nowhere to put a school. So now we're going to bus them halfway across the city to even attend school every day. So Founders Boulevard, I have concerns whether or not that's actually going to be able to handle the additional traffic. I know that no one wants to say anything about the special project. I don't expect them to, but based on the names, the pictures, all that, I'm not stupid. And there is going to be a massive influx of coming and going of traffic to that special project. And I do not think that road can handle the population density plus that influx of traffic, given that that's the only road in and out. And on top of the traffic, you're also going to have the junior high traffic coming and going twice a day as well with that. I also have concerns on how they're calculating the green space. I know that according to the DAP, they are allowed to count the special project as green space, but that seems disingenuous to me given the fact that odds are only very specific people are going to be able to use that property. I also have concerns with how they've calculated the basins at 100%, and with some of the lotting along the drainage, they didn't include the additional green space that should be required there. I'm kind of tired of getting hit over the head with the DAP on some of this, to be honest. I think using Founders Boulevard as green space is disingenuous since it's going to be a public road. I realize, again, the DAP says it's acceptable, but what's acceptable and what's right are two different things.
Thank you, Mr. Biswell. Any others?
Whitmore, Saratoga Springs. I live on Rocky Ridge, and my largest concern is that Foothill Boulevard. I know that that is not necessarily associated with this. That will become a major thoroughfare and will continue to press traffic down into not only the Beacon Hill, but also the benches and Grandview. Again, traffic, and more traffic is my largest concern. Having children as well as an open space needed. You're doing good with open space. You can do better. Keep it up. Keep pushing for more. So that's all my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any others?
I'm Micah Raventos. I live on Meadowside Drive. I just wanted to say I'm really excited about this. I know there's other concerns, and they're valid. I'm not knocking those, but I just wanted to express excitement and positivity. I think this is a really good thing for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Micah.
Hello. Jared Hansen, Saratoga Springs. I have probably a couple of dumb questions in addition to the good ones that have already been asked. I'd like to second all of the comments that I've heard so far. We share the same concerns after watching last week's meeting. Some of the questions I have, is why would we have accepted the plan? Why would we accept the plan before the traffic study's been completed? I don't understand that. I'm also curious as to why. I know that there's been talk about the DAP, but my question is, that sets a minimum standard, but why do we have to follow the minimum? I'm with everyone else that, one of the draws for coming here was the open space that we would have, and seeing that density, that's not what we came here for. So I don't understand why we would have to apply the minimum with so much space around here in Saratoga Springs. Another question is, as just maybe a statement, but the committee, the group that we have here, this is getting ahead of the development. The comment that was made last week about growing from the road out because that's economics, to me was, wow, I did not like that statement. That's why we plan, so we can avoid these kind of issues with the traffic. Let's get ahead of it. Let's not let the easy path make us crooked, right? Let's get ahead of what these issues are going to be. Another really dumb question for me is, I don't understand why it has to have that big hook up there for the park. Like, couldn't you make it that straight and use it as a road? Just a dumb question from me. I don't know how those work, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen. Any other comments or questions?
My name is Barbara Thomas. I'm from West Valley City. I have several questions. Could you show me where on this map the corridor location will be?
Foothill Boulevard? Foothill Boulevard?
No, the Mountain View corridor, as it
Oh.
comes down through here, will it
Yeah,
impact
it's
this
called Foothill when it gets here. Just on the left side of the screen, you can see kind of the, I don't think my mouse shows up on
I
this
sit in the
rail right
back,
here.
so I couldn't see it
Right here. There's Foothill Boulevard right
on
there.
this side.
Yep.
Thank you. Will these villages be HOAs, or will they be open communities? Will these streets be private streets, or will they be public streets? And will the slip streets be wide enough to have garbage trucks come down them? Another question was, how do you get from those slip streets onto the corridor? Are you going to be needing lights at any point on Founders Boulevard? And then looking at this map, Founders Boulevard goes east to where the junior high is. Then there's no boulevard at that point that goes out to Redwood? I don't see a road. If the far right is Redwood Road, how are you getting to what you identified as Founders Boulevard?
We'll address these.
Okay.
We've written down all your questions.
Okay. If not, I have them on my receipt right here. Thank you.
Thank you. And it was Mrs. Johns, is that correct? Thomas, sorry. Okay. Any others before we start jumping into all these questions? Okay. We're going to close public comments at this time. Thank you for showing up, and we really appreciate that you've brought forward your comments and your concerns. We would like to, for the record, just to have a count, how many of you, by a show of hands, came for this item tonight? Okay, let's do it by show of hands who didn't come for this item tonight. Okay, hi Stan, how you doing? Okay, all right, let's jump into the questions. Hopefully I'm not the only one who's taking notes, but we'll make sure that we get to your questions. Let's start out at the top. Mrs. Baldry had some questions. Did you want to start to address those, or do we want to turn that over to you?
Yeah, I would take some notes, but if you got the questions, let's just go with that.
Okay, so first question was the special assessment. Who is responsible for those?
The special assessment, and I'll have the applicant chime in as well. Special assessment would just be certain, or perhaps all the residences within, yes?
I think it's premature to discuss that right now. When the special assessment area, if it is established, there will be a chance for a public hearing in the future. We don't know the details about it yet. I don't know if that, I haven't seen anything. We haven't had any consultants start to put together information, but the information will be forthcoming when we go through that process and we have public hearings in the future. Well, we don't know the details about it, so I don't know that we can answer any questions. We're speculating at this point. There will be a public hearing in the future to discuss that establishment, and there will be a public process at that time.
Okay, so we had a couple people that asked questions about the 12 units per acre.
Yeah.
And that it's not feathered and is visually inappropriate. Do you want to comment on that?
The DAP has established that within that DAP area, they're already guaranteed 16,000 doors, basically. And so it's up to the landowner, SLR in this case, as development comes in, where they choose to put that density. Obviously, most people don't like density, but if they've got 16,000 units that they have the right to build, they've got to put that density somewhere. No matter where you put it, it's going to impact whatever neighborhoods are in that area. True statement, it'll cause traffic, absolutely. But it's written in the DAP now that they have the right to do that. And so this is their proposal now as the landowner. They have the right to come in and request, this is the density we want, this is the type of development we want, and so that's what they're doing.
Just a correction on that. Yes, they are entitled to a certain density, but the Planning Commission and City Council get to determine the location of the place types, and that's the discretion that the council has. So long as it doesn't unreasonably, as long as it doesn't result in an adverse impact on their ability to utilize the full density. But otherwise, per the code and the district area plan, city has the discretion to determine the location of those place types. So I don't want us to downplay. We do have some discretion here with where those place types are located.
Okay, the next question was about services such as schools. If we're bringing in all these people, could you, maybe David, could you briefly discuss how schools are determined, how many new schools coming in?
Yeah, obviously that's a function of Alpine School District. They're constantly, I do attend meetings with the school district in their offices in American Fork. It's obviously a big concern of the school district. I don't know if you saw the article on KSL yesterday or today. It's now come out that will be purchasing another piece of property here in Saratoga up on North Redwood to build a school. And they indicate that they bought one in Lehigh and one in Eagle Mountain as well. Obviously, you bring in any units, whether it be single family, multifamily, whatever it may be, that is going to have an impact on the school system. Can the city deny something based on what it would have an impact on the school? I don't think so, since the school is a different function than the city. But yeah, obviously, is a concern with when you have a very rapid growing community such as Saratoga Springs in this area. There is a big impact on the school system.
Okay, and then the next one, perhaps you could briefly discuss how the roads are built when we have larger projects like these coming in.
I'll turn that over to the city engineer on that one.
Okay.
So I can answer a general question like that. I wonder if it would be appropriate to give the applicant an opportunity to speak to their traffic study and answer those questions about their traffic study. But to answer your general question about the city has a transportation master plan. We've planned for roads connecting into this site from various points along the perimeter, and we'll be executing that master plan.
The question I wanted to specifically address, and I don't know if a lot of people knew this, and I didn't really know this before I started working on Planning Commission, but how much control does the city have in planning the roads and in upgrading those and working on traffic?
Much. The city has a transportation master plan, and that master plan plans for various sizes and capacities of roads throughout the city, and we're obligated to maintain them, and we collect funds to do that.
What I'm specifically, I'm talking about UDOT roads.
So restate your question, please.
Like Redwood Road, like others. How does the city even have any power or authority towards upgrading those roads?
No.
So I just wanted to make that clear that a lot of the traffic problems that we have are not specific to the city.
So the city, we're in communication with UDOT on a regular basis. We express concerns with them. They're responsive to those concerns. But on a regional facility like this, they're very, very reactive. It's not a if you build it they will come philosophy. It's a if they come we'll build it. And so it's a reactive thing when a road reaches a capacity, and then they start to address issues on how to address it.
Thank you. There's a question, what goes behind the special site? I think that was addressed in one of the other questions. If you look just to the west of the special project site, that is that's the future site for Mountain View Corridor.
So that's the future site. Is that finalized? Is that actually planned?
So the transportation master plan, so let me back up. UDOT, in conjunction with the Mountain Land Association of Governments, commissioned a corridor alignment study for the Mountain View Corridor from Crossroads Boulevard all the way down through the city to Redwood Road way on the south end. It's been studied a few times, and that alignment study is finished, and the city has incorporated that alignment into its transportation master plan. Is it precise? No, but conceptually it's very close.
Well,
Kevin, do you have something you want to say?
I want to just address the road issue. So basically, the way that road, as far as the impacts or the roads that need to be built, created by the impact of development, it is the development's responsibility to do that. Now, we do that through different ways. We impose impact fees. Those impact fees are supposed to be proportion as far as the developer's share of the future, the future system. They're called system improvements. Those are the larger roads that we have in our city, like collector roads and arterial roads. Those are what we determine to be system improvements. And we pass impact fees that are paid by development to install those roads. Now, the other roads that go in, such as local roads and other possibly minor collector roads that aren't, I don't think we have minor collector roads, but other collector roads that aren't deemed to be system improvements, those roads have to be installed by the developer. Now, part of our transportation master plan, we also build in the UDOT roads and what they have planned for those roads, and those help reduce the need for some of those additional system improvements. So it's kind of a holistic approach. Can we force UDOT to expand a road? Of course not. We can't do that. They're the state. Can we require a developer to put in like a acceleration or deceleration lane or a traffic light onto UDOT road, things that would be directly tied to that development? We absolutely can. Now, the question is will UDOT say yes or no? We don't know, but generally they cooperate pretty well with us in addressing what the needs are here locally. And I hope, does that answer? I think that it probably answers the question better, but it's really the cost of upgrading roads and expanding roads, that those burdens that are created by the development and development in the city are to be borne by the development through impact fees and other exaction and development requirements and conditions.
Thank you. Okay, so we have 3 questions from, let's see, it was Biswell. There were 3 that were not covered in what we've spoken with before. Sorry, Boswell. Sorry about that. This is calculating the green space, basins calculations, and Founders Boulevard calculations as open space. David, I can turn this over to you, or you can turn it over to the
applicant. Founders Boulevard is an approved type of open space in the district area plan. So that is there as their right to do that. As far as the function of the basins, detention basins as open space, in straight Title 19, if you're not looking at, planned community zone, detention basins are not given full credit for open space. However, the nature of a community plan, the whole point of a community plan is you're requesting something that isn't your standard Title 19. Now, it still becomes a legislative function. Does the city council going to approve that? That'll be up to the city council to decide. The applicant has requested that those basins be considered full open space. That's their right to request that. Again, whether the city council approves that, that's going to be up to the city council.
Okay. Commissioner Karn, did you have something that was pressing?
A lot of questions about the roads, and I just wanted clarity from David or Kevin. We talk about Redwood being a UDOT road. Founders Boulevard, which people refer to as Mountain View Corridor, within the city south of 73, that's a city road, correct? It's not a Foothill, sorry. Foothill Boulevard is a city road, not a UDOT road.
Foothill Boulevard in the short term, so it will be built in stages. And the first stage will be essentially the east frontage road. That'll be a city street. Eventually, the plan is for the whole facility to be UDOT.
But the responsibility for installing that is a city responsibility.
Well, it would be.
My point being, it's not a UDOT project. UDOT's not coming in to put that road in.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay. Look, we're going to hold on a second. We're going to continue to go down through the questions. We have closed public comment at this time, so we're going to continue through these. All right. We had, let's see, a question here about Foothill Boulevard. Press traffic into this area. Open space can do better. Oh, okay. Yeah, we do have notes on, somebody said that there wasn't a traffic study done. Would you like to touch on the traffic study that you've completed?
Yes, there is a traffic study, and it's included in the community plan. It was completed by Fair and Peers, and they're a group that does a lot of UDOT traffic studies as well as traffic studies throughout the state here. So that has been done. They have looked at the traffic counts, the traffic flows, and have provided their input. Anyone's welcome to look at that study. It's in the document. It's a public document at this point.
Okay, thank you. And we have all read that because it's part of our packet. Founders Boulevard, there was a question about Founders Boulevard handling traffic. And then there's additional questions about the side streets. Can they handle a garbage truck? So do you want to address some of those?
Yes, so we looked at several different ways to handle Founders Boulevard. And initially, this road was planned to be an arterial connecting the future Mountain View corridor, Foothill Drive to Redwood Road. And over time, it became a collector, and those are roadway classifications. So there's different ways to handle that. Usually, collectors don't allow driveways to front them, and so we could have either, we could have just designed this roadway to just be a roadway without houses fronting it, or and just put a fence along it or something along the backside of it. We could have designed it to have houses fronting it, sort of like an alley-loaded unit, where the traffic would get off the main road and they would come through the back, but there would likely have to be on-street parking to handle some of the parking issues of residents. And our third option was to do this slip lane concept. We studied this from different regions throughout the country and found this to be an effective way of preserving a corridor, which we were trying to do, and make this Founders Boulevard a centerpiece to the community, while removing the friction that comes from all of the driveways that attach to the roadway. So you can still have the driveways on the slip lanes and on-street parking on the slip lanes, and allow the traffic free motion to move through with only certain points of friction. There will be, I believe there's going to be at least one more traffic light planned according to the traffic master plan. I'd have to review it to make sure, but I recall that there's one more. It's near the junior high where Old Farm Roads comes into that intersection with Founders Boulevard. That'll likely have to be signalized at some point in the future, because that road is seen as a collector to run north and south to relieve some of the pressure from Redwood Road. And so that's, I think that handles or addresses most of the questions that were asked.
Okay, so.
And I can speak to one question that I remember was asked about the segment north of the junior high that's not shown on their plan. That segment is, so as the applicant mentioned, Founders Boulevard, and what's shown here will be a collector, but the segment north of the junior high is a minor arterial, so it's even wider. And that's being built under the junior high's application.
Okay, so there was a question about using the whole special project site as open space, and I came tonight with that same question. In the event that there is some kind of construction in that open space, is there going to be some kind of concession to have open space somewhere else within one of the developments to make up for that? So could you address that?
There's not any concession contemplated in the community plan, no. However, there will be naturally additional open space within this community in the different villages that come online. They're not shown on this plan, but they will. We've had several builders who have been proposing to develop in these areas already, and each of them has also designated open space within there. So what we're shooting for is a minimum open space, because we know that it will only grow from there. Further, we've not counted the meeting house open space. We were also, our group was also the owner of the property where the junior high goes and where the other two meeting houses have been constructed. And that, those typically are allowed under the district area plan to be open space. And so from an open space perspective, there's a lot of open space, more than the 18%, which is the minimum allowed.
Okay. That's that. Okay, so how about this imaginary Founders Boulevard between where we were seeing it to the Redwood Road? Did you want to touch on that? They want to know how you get from Redwood Road to Founders.
That's the question that I answered.
Sorry, I was discussing something with my vice chair at that time.
It's just not illustrated in our plan because it's off of our property, but there is a road that connects there.
Did anybody ever have any other questions? This has covered all the ones I had notes for.
Chair Wilkins, before you...
Just a minute. Go ahead.
Can I just make a comment really quick? So before you start asking questions, I know the open space is going to be something that I'll probably get asked just because the detention basin, retention basin issue. I was trying to look through the community plan to be prepared to discuss that. And really when it comes to the open space types that are allowed, you go back to the district area plan, as you all know, and as the applicant correctly pointed out. However, I noticed on the community plan, I don't see those open space types identified. I just see green on the map, and it has a description like detention basin, Founders Boulevard. So I really can't tell whether or not it meets those open space types that are allowed. So I would just ask the applicant to specify those open space types. And correct me if I'm wrong if you have that on the community plan, but that's one of the things the community plan needs to identify is the open space types. And if they can do that, point to where in the community plan where that is, or maybe clarify it for the city council meeting, then I can make a better determination about whether or not those are permitted.
Please.
We can provide additional clarification. We did provide some clarification based on Commissioner Steele's comments about the storm basins. They would be incorporated into the parks because what you can do with a detention basin is it can be basically some place that's wholly and exclusively there for water management. Or it can be used, it can be designed in such a way that most of the time people don't know it's a storm water basin. Most of the time its grades are such, it's mowed, it's irrigated, it functions as park space. And only in the event of a storm that does it fill up. And so that's what we're trying to do. Instead of having an unusable space or kind of an excuse for a park, we're intending to develop this area into parks. We're not asking for it to be included in a city park impact fee because its function is going to be more of a detention basin. That's its primary function, but it will be developed as a park. That's our intention at this point.
Okay. Commissioner Chapman and then Commissioner Kilgore, you can address the other questions that you had.
Sure. Let's see if we can do this. One of my roles is to be a personal assistant to Mr. Chair over here. Jared Hansen had a couple of other questions. One is last week you stipulated that you were going to build from the road out for economical reasons rather than trying to get ahead of it, as Mr. Hansen said. Could you just explain your philosophy on why you're building which way first?
I'm not sure that was a comment that we made. Perhaps that was somebody else that made that comment. But if it was something that we said, our intention is not necessarily to develop from Redwood Road up to the special project area. Our intention is going to be to build the spine infrastructure here and up and around the special project area. So each of those developments, the development could start at the very back end or the far west side, or it could start on one of the southern parcels or on the eastern parcel. We're not sure yet because we need to measure that market interest and figure out which one works best.
Okay, and I apologize if I misspoke, but it seems your explanation probably satisfied the question. The last question Mr. Hansen had was why the hook up top, thinking it would possibly be better to have that be straight and used as a road.
The intent of that is going to be a road. That will be a road. There is a master roadway network, and Gordon can speak to this. Our group, our larger group, owns and controls this land from basically Harvest Hills, or excuse me, from Grandview and Saratoga Hills all the way north to Pony Express. And so we've been involved in the planning of those major arterials and collector roadways there so that we can meet all the objectives of traffic flow as well as connectivity. And so there is a plan that you'll be seeing, I believe, shortly, which would be an update that you'll see, and that point that you see there will make a lot more sense with the roadway network that the city is planning.
Thank you. And then Ms. Thomas had several questions. The first of which are the villages going to be governed by an HOA or other body?
We aren't stipulating that they have to have HOAs. They may if they choose to, and that will be an individual decision based on each development and each village as they move forward. It's likely that they will have HOAs. I'm not sure if everyone will or not, but it's likely there will be HOAs involved here. But as a master developer, we aren't planning to be a part of an HOA.
And I guess as a follow-up from me, if there's no HOA, are there going to be CC&Rs or some other architectural standards for the community?
Yes, within the community plan, there are design guidelines that have been put together and guiding principles. Those are just the beginnings of what will eventually become a set of CC&Rs that will be probably unique to each of these different villages, because they'll have different housing types and products that will require different CC&Rs. But yes, they will have CC&Rs on those, and there will be an architectural review committee. We didn't focus on that, but that is a major aspect of this community plan, which will allow a group of professionals to sit down and look at the architecture of each of the different housing types and elevations to attempt to make it look good and feel good and be a long-term project that people are proud of.
Thank you. Public or private streets?
All the streets that were shown on the plan here are intended to be public. There may be private streets, particularly where there's density, a little higher densities, for example, in the 12 units per acre area. I would anticipate there may be some private streets in there, but I'm not sure yet because we haven't got to that level of detail. That level of detail will come through a village plan, and that village plan will then identify a lot more detail, and it'll have a builder that's willing to build a certain product there. Until we know what the product's going to look like, it's going to be hard for us to say whether the streets are going to be public or private.
Okay, and then can garbage trucks get onto the slip lanes and through?
Yes, so when we initially submitted our plan, we worked together with city staff, both the city engineer as well as Public Works and fire safety. We worked with all of them as they reviewed our plans, and we made modifications to the Founders Boulevard and the slip roads to accommodate any kind of vehicle that we currently anticipate from a utility standpoint, such as garbage trucks, fire engines, those sorts of things.
Thank you. And then I believe the final question that I have is, how does one get on to Foothill Boulevard from the slip lanes, or maybe potentially more appropriate, how do you get from the slip lanes onto the larger streets?
Okay, so I think you meant Founders Boulevard instead of Foothill Boulevard.
Founders Boulevard.
So if you'll note there are blocks, and each block there's an intersection that runs north and south, and then just beyond those intersections there will be an entrance that it's a one-way entrance off that particular direction. So for example, if you're heading west, you would enter at the beginning of the block and then head west along the parallel to the traffic traveling in that closest lane, and that's where you'll also find the parking. And then you get out the same way. So people will have their own driveways that they'll pull out of, but they'll need to go one way down that slip lane until they come to the entrance back onto the main collector thoroughfare.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I believe that's the questions that I had. Let me check with.
Commissioner Kilgore, did you hear one additional?
I think there was one, yeah, and do you anticipate signalizing Founders Boulevard based on what your current plans are?
As I mentioned, I'm only operating from recollection, but I believe there's one location where a signal is proposed by the traffic study, and that is at, I think it's called Old Farm Road now, that runs parallel. It's adjacent to the junior high there, and it's being constructed by the junior high, and where Founders Boulevard meets it. I think that will eventually, not immediately, but will eventually require signalization due to the traffic there.
Hopefully we've answered your questions. We're really grateful that you've come out. Before we move on and turn the time over to the Planning Commission, we'd like to take a 5-minute break. So, oh, and one other thing, our Vice Chair has said that you can go online to SaratogaSpringsCity.com and you can take a look at the whole packet. It's in there, so you can see everything that we see. That's all been published, so you can take a look at these packets that we're seeing. So we're going to take 5 minutes, and we'll come back.